I'm Bob Peters. I'm the host of Salute. We're here in Lady Lake at the American Legion Post 347, and I'm with
Jarek Johnson, driver of the POW MIA 76 Freedom Car.
And I'm Jack Johnson, and I'm his father and owner of the POW MIA Freedom Car.
and a veteran.
And a veteran.
Hello and welcome to Salute. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and I have the honor of having a veteran alongside of me, Mr. Jack Jennings, the owner of the number 76 NASCAR, and this young fellow over here is your son, Jarrett. Welcome to Salute. I'm very interested in learning about the NASCAR car and how this whole program all came together, but I'd like to find out a little bit more about you first since you're the driver.
Yep, my name's Jarek Johnson, and I'm from Faribault, Minnesota originally, but live in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina now, where 90% of the race teams are from. And started this whole deal actually with the American Legion about 6-7 years ago. To go down and race. My dad was a veteran, a member of the American Legion, and that's how he got tied in with them, asking them to do more for them. And after doing that for a few years, one of the generals actually with the American Legion said, we need some more recognition for POW and MIA awareness. And they said, well, why don't we run a POW MIA car? That way all veterans, not only American Legions, but VFWs as well, can help support the car. So we started that out of Mooresville, North Carolina, and been racing for them since, going around doing military appreciation events and show car appearances and whatever we can do to just spread POW MIA awareness.
Yeah, and I salute you for that too, because I've been involved in the veterans community for many, many years. And I used to go to school and I asked the kids one day, what's MIA POW? And they said, Mia Powell. They had no idea. So this is a very worthwhile.
Yeah, I get that quite a bit with the race car, especially at the racetrack. We'll get the young kids coming out during the autograph sessions, and we'll have the logo on the car, and they'll go, "Oh, Pal Maya, what's that? A rock band?" Yeah. So what we're doing is just spreading awareness, just the logo being out there, kids asking questions, and people talking about POW MIA. That's what it's all about, just to make sure it stays in the forefront of America and on the front of people's minds, and letting our future generations know, what it even means, and that those soldiers gave, one of the ultimate sacrifices for this country.
That's right. Fill me in a little bit about where we find you racing. You race all different classes, I understand.
Yeah, we're run basically on donations and support from veterans and small businesses like Bokers Incorporated out of Minneapolis and lodgingquotes.com, a travel site. So our schedule changes, but we'll run anywhere from ASA events to NASCAR events. And I've been at about every track there is, from Talladega to Bristol to Elko Speedway in Minnesota, small tracks all over the place. So we have a website, freedomcar.org.
I was hoping you'd get that.
And that'll keep people up to date on where we're going next. And we do a lot of show car events, like I said, too. Just not just the racing. That's kind of our marketing tool to put it out there, POW MIA awareness, and put it out there and get everywhere. So you'll see us at show car events, that'll have 100,000 people, like Charlotte Auto Fair and stuff like that. So make sure you check freedomcar.org for where we'll be next.
Okay. I'm going to turn over here to our veteran. Nice to have you, Jack.
Nice to be here.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. You were an Army veteran. When were you in?
I was in from 72, 73, year just at the end of the Vietnam conflict.
Did you go overseas?
No. I fought the war right here in the United States.
Yeah. Well, they didn't get here, did they?
no, they
did a good job. Yeah, you did a good job. So this being a veteran, and I'm a veteran also, of course, but MIA POW is very important to us. So how did you wind up getting involved in all this? I mean, you're the car owner, and whose idea, whose brainchild was this?
Well, it all started out, like Jarek said, back in 2005 and 6. We were looking for a sponsorship, just like any other race team are looking for sponsorship. It's a very expensive sport, but it's got a lot of marketing ability. So we went to the American Legion National and asked them if they'd be interested in sponsoring the race car and get recognition and exposure for the American Legion, what it does, you know, the programs they have. And they were very interested, but they didn't really want to take any funds away from the veteran programs that they have. So they decided that, but they still wanted to do something, so they give us the rights to use the American Legion logo and licenses and so on and so forth. So we were funded by the veterans and the post themselves, and as Jarek said, as donations came in, that's how we went out and raced and had show car appearances and so on and so forth. And then after 4 years, our contract was up, and they decided, you know, let's go, instead of just having the American Legion on the car, we had a hard time with the VFW and the AMVETS and other veteran organizations
right.
supporting the American Legion car. So we decided to go with the POW MIA car. That way, all veterans and patriotic Americans and everybody can support us.
Because I see when I looked in the website, there's quite a few VFWs also that help support you.
Yeah, and so that's basically how it came about, and that happened about 2005. So we've been doing it just about 10 years now.
Okay, well, that's great. Where next? Where are you guys going next? What are you doing next?
Don't know for sure. We only plan out like 60 days ahead of time. Our next race, I believe, is in Nashville, I think, and then we actually have a race in North Carolina at Kinley National Speedway in March also. So that's our next racing events. And then we do a lot of military veterans appreciation events at Walmarts and Chevy dealers and so on and so forth. And a lot of the posts, VFW or American Legion posts, they use us for fundraisers to try to get some membership come in and so on and so forth. So we, you know, we could be here next week and we can be at an American Legion post in Kansas in
So
2
the
weeks.
best way to find out is like Jared said,
Go
go to the
freedom,
website, right?
Go to freedomcar.org, right.
Yeah, well, it was nice meeting you guys here at the Lady Lake American Legion, 347. And if I don't say this, the world's largest American Legion, there's some people in the background that are going to beat me up. So I'm making sure I get that out. And you're here along with another gentleman, Mr. Tom Jennings, Whalen's younger brother. Okay, I'm not really sure. But anyway, we'll be talking to him in a minute, so we're going to take a little break. But before we take this break, I just want to tell you something. I'm available for a backup driver. Got a Chevy Cobalt.
We'll keep that in mind.
All right. Tell me, what are you hoping that this accomplishes, this car going around?
Well, the POWMIA Freedom Car is our tool for our awareness campaign. The most thing that we're looking for is to make the awareness out there for what we talked about before, the younger kids that don't know what it is, and for those that do know what it is, you know, to be attentive to what's going on. Make sure any POW/MIA issues that are happening, that you're aware of them and the amount of POW/MIAs that are still unaccounted for. And if the need arises, you know, writing your congressman or whatever it takes to make sure things like JPAC are fully funded and they're not taking away from the search for, you know, our forgotten soldiers, our not forgotten soldiers. Mm-hmm. And that's what the awareness campaign is for. And if there are any activities for the POW/MIA families, make sure you know what's going on and help support them too.
The bottom line is get involved.
That's right.
Okay, now we're inside the Legion here in Lady Lake, and I have another guest that I'm bringing in here, Mr. Tom Jennings.
Hello, Bob.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right.
You are the brother of, well, your older brother, he was kind of known a little bit.
Well, you know, he did good. He made it through the winter.
Yeah, Whalen Jennings, yeah.
Here's a house.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to meet you here.
Hey, my
And
pleasure,
tell me,
Bob.
how did you get here? I mean, you're a singer-songwriter. Tell me, I know you've been in the business a long time. Tell us a little bit of your history about you and your brother and how it all got started with you.
Oh, basically, we got out in West Texas. You know, you got to do something. But anyway, we had a lot of people that we were involved in when we were young, and got inspired by them. Buddy Holly, Roy Elvis, and a whole bunch. We was all hanging around Lubbock, Texas there. Anyway, Waylon and I just got to working together with amateur contests. My dad was a picker, and he kind of wanted to live his life through us, I guess, because after he got married and got kids, us and everything, he quit. And we just more or less took it up from there and working all around, and wound up trying to put his life in a nutshell is awful hard to do, but wound up in Nashville, Tennessee, and they didn't like us worth a flip, and we kept having to do what we did. That's what I was telling Jack earlier. You know, we had to do what we did. That's all we knew how to do, and they thought we were doing it on purpose. But as it turned out, we wound up changing the music industry and doing things that had never been done. In fact, Waylon sold more records than anybody in the history of country music.
Oh, really?
And so he was drawing more money than anybody in the history of country music. And so all this was happening, so we weren't agreeing with them, and so they put an outlaw stamp on it. And that's
Yeah,
where
you
that
guys
all-
are called the Outlaws.
We didn't rob nobody's grocery store or train. What we did was basically change the industry because we had to do that to get a job.
Yeah.
That's what it come down, because what we did and what they did were so different, but we were still country, you know.
Yeah.
Always will be and always were.
I bet you could write a book about
have.
you have you?
Yeah, oh yeah, there.
Yeah.
I've talked to 2 or 3 different ones that about doing a movie, and also I've got the book. It's there's a good portion of it is on there. You get it on the web. It's called My Brother, Your Outlaw, and it kind of gives you a tidbit of.
So you
of
go on
his
you
life.
go on a computer, you can find that
Yeah.
on Amazon or someplace.
www something other.
Yeah. Under Outlaws, look under Outlaws.
But basically, what I got, I met with, excuse me, I met with Jack and Jarek in Nashville, and Jack come up with the idea. I didn't. Him and my agent, Lynn Preston, they were talking about putting a thing together to help POW MIA. Well, they've been doing it, you know, from the trenches. And, of course, that's the way anything is done right, is through the trenches. But it's never been out in front of people's face enough, really, to keep them real conscious of it. And they're constantly driving for this. Now, this is no, actually, it's no feather in their cap, no money in their pocket to a degree. What it does, what they're doing, they're trying to get those guys that, there's still some out there.
Oh yeah, unfortunately.
There always will be.
Yeah.
People don't, just because you don't have a war, don't mean you don't have POWs. Just because you don't have a war, you still have missing in action people.
Mm-hmm.
And this has got to stay in front of the people's face, you know, and out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
Is basically it, and that's what they're doing, and they're doing it through race carring. I guess they'd be doing it through anything because they believe in it.
Yeah,
And
it's an important
they
mission.
talked to me, and they kind of, you know, I wasn't that much aware of any of it, you know, and then they kind of made a believer out of me too, and because it's definitely there. But of course, all military associations are for all military people. VFW, American Legion, the whole thing is striving for the same thing for the benefit of the veteran, and that's what they do. And basically, that's what I'm here doing. They come up with the idea of us all teaming together and trying to put this, you know, everywhere we can, put it in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
You didn't ask that, did you?
Well, you're doing a good job.
You asked me
I don't need to ask anything.
You
I just
asked
let
me
you
what
go.
time it is, and I'll tell you how to build a watch.
Yeah, I say. Well, you're going to be performing here tonight.
Yes,
We're going to later on. We're going to come in and get some footage of that.
Oh,
and
okay.
I understand. I have never seen your act before, your performance, but you tell a lot of the stories about some of the people you've met, like.
The bad things that, oh yes, the
Now,
things that
could
people were
you share?
instrumental.
Could
in.
you share one with me? And remember, this is family television.
Oh yes. Basically, one that kind of got it all in a kind of the biggest influence in the beginning. I was Jack and Jerry and I was sitting around there talking earlier, and I told him, I said, and his wife, and we was all sitting around, and it seems like in Waylon's, I could see in Waylon's mind and in his eye. Of course, we was together all the time, all the way up, and I could see Buddy Holly walk through his
The
mind.
Big Bopper.
And the Big Bopper and all of them, but mostly Buddy Holly, because Buddy Holly was the first one to take an interest in Waylon.
Mm-hmm.
He, for some reason, I don't know what it was, but, you know, God bless anybody that has somebody that wants to help like that. And in Waylon, it was in a situation where Littlefield, Texas, Lubbock, Texas, there's nobody swoops down out of somewhere and says, I'm going to make you a big act, you know.
Yeah.
And Buddy was determined to do this, and so I would say in the early stages and all the way up for Buddy was one of the biggest influences in Waylon's life, and also in mine. Mine from a standpoint of him being one of the greatest guys you ever want to meet. And Waylon, of course, same thing, but he took an interest in him, even to the point of, you know, a lot of people they can love what you do, and I used to, I'd have them, you know, back when I first started recording, I'd get, man, I love what you do and all that kind of stuff and all that kind of thing, and bless them for feeling this way. But if they had no power to do anything, it didn't do any good.
You got to pay
It's
the
just like
bills.
that. Well, he had the power to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say, he was in that first one to have the influence, and he had the wherewithal to put it together. And so he told Waylon, I'm going to cut a record on you. And so we all loaded up. I'm giving the short term of it. We all loaded up and went over to Clovis, New Mexico at Norman Petty's studio where Buddy Holly recorded his stuff. And I met Buddy's manager there, which was Norman Petty, and I learned to dislike him very, very much. But anyway, we got in, and at that period of time, Richie Valens had cut a song called La Bamba. La Bamba,
Yeah.
And done it in Mexican, Spanish, excuse me, politically correct. Anyway, they did this version of it in Mexican. Well, Buddy thought, hey, this is a great idea. So he goes and gets an old Cajun song. Why he done that, I don't know. Anyway, and it was in French.
French.
Yeah, okay. He told Waylon, here was what we're going to cut, called Jolie Blanc, in French. And I said, Waylon, how you going to cut a record in French? You don't even know a Frenchman, much less know the English language. Oh, no, I got to do what Buddy says. Anyway, they go in and they cut this record, and Waylon's doing it. That first record was in Cajun French, is what it was.
Oh.
Jolie Blanc, Jolie T, Chachafe, Jolie Cobb. And anyway, we went into Clovis, New Mexico to do this. And I walk in the studio, and of course, Sonny Curtis and a whole lot of them hanging around. Roy Orbison used to hang around in there, and he cut some of it. But all them guys out of that part of the area. I go in there, and Buddy's such a gentleman, he introduces me to everybody. Hell, I didn't mean nothing to him, really, in a way, other than we were good friends. Mm-hmm. But he did this with everybody around him. He made sure everybody was comfortable. So he goes in, and he introduces me to Norman Petty. He said, Tommy, this is my manager and my producer. You know, engineer. Of course, Buddy produced his own stuff, if it's known right. Anyway, Norman was just, oh, so nice to meet you. The minute Buddy got out of sight, he turned around to me and said, you go somewhere and get out of the way and stay out of people's business. I said, whoa, wait a minute. This ain't going to work. Of course, I was raised out in West Texas, as you know. And we was always fighting, scuffling and everything. And I didn't have people talking to me that way, you know. And I'll go back to Waylon. Now, I wasn't but 17, but I'll go to Waylon and I said, well, I'm going to go whoop his butt. And he said, what do you mean? I said, that Norman Petty guy. I said, minute Buddy turned his back, he told me to get out there and stay out of the way. And said a couple cuss words in the process. And I said, well, you can't go whoop him, Tommy. I said, yeah, I'm going to whoop him. He said, no, I won't be able to cut my record then. And I said, well, okay, but he says one more thing out of me. Anyway, this was kind of the beginning of what went on. And Buddy, he paid King Curtis $500 in plane fare to come out of New York, which King Curtis was the top sax player. He's the coach.
Oh, yeah, I know of him, yeah.
Paid him, called him up, and said, King, I want you to come play for this guy. And Buddy said, well, I said, okay. He said, Mr. Holly said it'd be $500 in plane fare. Not $500 in plane fare in 1958.
That was a lot of money.
You bet. Anyway, he says, okay. He said, I'm gonna let you have it. So King Curtis said, well, who am I working with, Mr. Holly? He said, well, he said, it's going to be a guy named Waylon Jennings. He says, I don't believe I've ever heard of him. Could I get my money up front? But he said, no, I'm not going to give you your money up front. His plane crashes, I lose my sax player and my $500. He said, don't talk that way, Mr. Holly, I'll be right on down. But anyway, that was the kind of the opening thing. And Waylon went in and cut the album, the single, and then went on the road with Buddy. And as we all know, Clear Lake, Iowa, where they got up there in a plane crash, and Buddy was killed. That kind of killed Waylon's whole everything. Because you can imagine, here's the man that had the wherewithal to do everything in the world, and his wherewithal died in a plane crash.
Yeah. It was a pleasure meeting you, your dad, and Tom. But it's time to say goodbye, and this is how I do it. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their family, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.
Can't say you had a head start when you start off
Now, no. Now drive. Now drive.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Clear. Well, I can see myself, but it looks like you're only getting this much of my head. It's got to go up. See, this is my eyebrows. That's what you're seeing, and I see in the camera.
Is there something else to talk about?
You want to use my wallet? I got a lot of cards in it. No money.
That's why they had to deal with all the
I thought the wheel was supposed to be on the inside of the car. Yeah, when he died in that plane crash, there was one other person that was supposed to be on that plane, but they backed off. Do you remember who that was?
Lead guitar player, Tommy Alsop.
Yeah.
Actually, what it was, Buddy had chartered plane. Tommy Alsop and Goose, we called him. Gosh, I think his name. Goose was drummer, Tommy Alsop lead guitar player, and Waylon was bass player. And what Buddy had chartered the plane for him and the band. They were the only band. Mm-hmm. The rest of them didn't have bands.
Yeah.
Richie Valens, J.P. Richards, or Big Bopper, Dion the Belmont, or Frankie Lasardo. That was Frankie and Johnny, the pair. Well, it was the Frankie of that bunch. Anyway, all these acts had no backup. Tommy and Alsop and the Goose and Waylon would back them, kind of, These were such a loose-fitting kind of things, back then, these tours. Anyway, what they did, Buddy told me she was going to rent a plane, or a charter plane, to go on to the next show day, which was Moorhead, right across across the river from Fargo. And he said, we'll go get up there early and we'll get some rest. Because they had been running down through there with them old city buses, you set up like this. There was no sleepers or anything. Yeah. And it kept freezing up everywhere. And so this was the idea. And Buddy was a pilot also, and he loved to fly. But he went over to call over Mason City and chartered the plane. Well, they got ready to, they did the show there in Clear Lake at the Surf Ballroom, and they were going to the airport. And J.P. Richards, Big Bopper, he had been having motion sickness and said he had a flu. Mm-hmm. And he asked Waylon, said, can I take your place on that plane? He said, I just can't ride that old bus. And it was freezing up everywhere, He said, can I take your place on that plane? And Waylon said, well, see what Buddy says. So he went up and that Buddy can, ask him if he could do it. And Buddy said, well, Waylon, you don't want to go anywhere. He said, well, no, it's up to you. Buddy said, well, okay, then. Well, Richie Valens was hearing all this. And so he goes over to Tommy Alsop, which was the lead guitar player, and said, can I can I take your place? Mm-hmm. And Tommy said, well, I don't know. And they said they flipped the coin. I don't know. One said they didn't see any coin flipping or anything like that. But he went ahead. It turned out that Richie Valens got the other place. Well, when it came out on the news, what had happened, Tommy also had some a money order coming in from Western something or other. And he asked Buddy if he'd pick it up for him over there. And he gave him his billfold. Mm-hmm. Well, when the plane crashed, they found Tommy Alsop's billfold. So they assumed that Buddy and the band was on the plane.
Yeah.
Well, when it came out in my hometown, I was doing something at there, and all of a sudden KAAA run it over the radio, and of course the Buddy Holly, Waylon Jennings, and Tommy Alsop was killed in an airplane crash in Clear Lake, Mason City, Iowa. Of course, I was trying to get to Mama before
she found out another way.
Anyway, it went the whole day, and finally Waylon called. He didn't know about all this.
Yeah.
And he called that evening, and Mama, she liked to fainted, naturally.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is when we found. But all that day, we had settled that, that Waylon and all of them. Of course, Buddy was a family friend, too. We really hated, of course, it's such a relief to find out your brother wasn't killed in it, But anyway, that's kind of one person. There was many people involved in his life that made a difference. But
you and your brother had a very exciting life. I mean, you've gotten to know a lot of the big names in country and western music.
And they were good people. What the great part of it is, you learn what they are and how they are, and you're not.
You learn the real person.
Well, and you're not learning what somebody said they were.
Yeah.
Of course, anything you do, PR, you have to have PR, you have to have this, and you have to have that. But you're creating things. What you do with these people, like Johnny Cash, I mean, it's like before the creation, you're sitting there. We used to talk at night, in them quiet times, I call them. And he would get down with that hillbilly philosophy. Johnny was, I don't know, one thing you say, you hear him say something, you get, I can't believe he said that, and you laugh your head off. Then you start listening to yourself say it. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so you realize that he had hillbilly wisdom,
I think we're just going to be about out of time. And
you think so?
Yeah.
You know how to build a watch now?
Yeah, I know how to build a watch. We could talk all day because all the people you've met, with Willie Nelson and all of them, Chris Christophers, and I'm a big fan of his. By the
He's
way.
a dandy.
Yeah.
But he was a Rhodes Scholar, a helicopter pilot, an engineer's degree, and the youngest captain take.
That's right. He's a veteran. Yeah. That's right.
All in State Command in West Point.
Yep.
He's all those things I didn't know he was when I first met him. He smelled like garbage can because he was pulling beer down at Tally Old Tavern when I met him.
Okay, that's enough there. Yeah. Well, since you've been touring with the MIA POW car and this awareness program, have you had a chance to drive it yet?
They would not allow me behind the wheel because they've already seen some of my driving.
We're going on tour. You gonna take me on tour with you? Hell yeah!
I'd lose part of that.
No, wait a minute.
We're spending most of our time keeping up with the Jones. Old car garage, and we're still building on. Maybe it's time you got back to the basics of love. Let's go.